This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. AIRBNB in New York City may not be making a comeback anytime soon, and that's a real shame. This latest effort to revive short-term rentals in the 5 boroughs has all but collapsed, thanks to a council member watering down her own bill, Farrah Lewis. The original proposal would have allowed owners of 1- and 2-family homes to host short-term renters without being physically present. A reasonable compromise, right? Well, not anymore. After pushback from tenant groups and the ever-powerful hotel industry, the council member stripped the bill of its most meaningful reforms. Now all it does is let homeowners lock parts of their homes while guests are staying there. Hardly the sweeping change Airbnb hosts were hoping for. The response has been predictable. Homeowner groups are furious, tenant advocates are cheering, and the hotel lobby is no doubt grinning from ear to ear. The crackdown on Airbnb and similar platforms in 2023 was swift and brutal. A new law required short-term rental hosts to register with the city and prohibited platforms from processing payments for unregistered listings. Practically overnight, more than 10,000 Airbnb listings vanished. Officials claimed this was a necessary step to protect the city's housing stock. But let's be honest, this has just been a windfall for the hotel industry. Since then, hotels have enjoyed record-high room rates, all while homeowners lose out on an important income stream. And let's not ignore the hypocrisy here. The same tenant groups decrying short-term rentals as a threat to affordable housing are taking money from the Hotel and Gaming Trades Council and the Hotel Association of New York City. These so-called grassroots efforts against Airbnb have some pretty powerful and well-funded allies. Meanwhile, Airbnb and homeowner groups have been fighting back with their own lobbying and newly formed super PAC aimed at supporting pro-Airbnb city council candidates. So where does that leave New Yorkers? Well, if you're a traveler looking for an affordable place to stay in one of the most expensive cities in the world, good luck. If you're a small homeowner trying to make ends meet by renting out a portion of your home, you're out of luck too. And if you're a hotel owner, congratulations. Your industry just successfully lobbied its way into another big payday. New York City should be a place of opportunity, not a place where bureaucratic overreach and special interests dictate how people use their own homes. Airbnb and similar platforms aren't perfect, but they provide an important option for both visitors and homeowners. I, for one, hope the city finds a way to bring them back, and soon.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
This episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. Life insurance can have a huge impact on our family's future. With SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is simple and affordable. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents will tailor your experience to find a life insurance policy for your needs in as little as 15 minutes. And SelectQuote partners with carriers that provide policies for many conditions. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Go to selectquote.com/SpotifyPod today to get started.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. New York's prisons are full of aging inmates, costing taxpayers a fortune, and yet we're no safer. That's not my opinion. That's the assessment of New York's chief judge, Rowan Wilson, and he's got the numbers to back it up. The percentage of inmates over 50 has doubled since 2008. The cost of housing them has skyrocketed from $81,000 a year in 2011 to over $250,000 a year by 2021. Factor in pensions and benefits for correction officers, and that figure balloons to more than $500,000 per inmate. And for what? What are we as taxpayers getting in return? It's not increased safety. Judge Wilson pointed out that even as incarceration rates soared, crime rates didn't drop. In fact, they often rose. Meanwhile, the United States has one of the highest recidivism rates in the world, double that of many European countries that focus on rehabilitation instead of just warehousing people for decades. Now, I'm not saying we should throw open the prison doors. No way, no how. There are people behind bars who should never see the outside again. But there are also people who have served decades who have changed, who've earned degrees, who've stayed out of trouble, who are never going to reoffend, and keeping them locked up until they die doesn't serve justice. It doesn't make us safer, and it certainly doesn't help our wallets. Judge Wilson is pushing the Second Look Act, which would give inmates serving more than a decade a chance to prove they no longer need to be behind bars. Is this the perfect solution? Maybe, maybe not, but we need to figure something out. Right now, we have a system that is draining taxpayer dollars to keep geriatrics in prison for years, sometimes decades, long after they pose any threat to society at all. And quite frankly, it just makes no sense. We should at least be able to agree on this. Justice should be about more than punishment. It should be about fairness, about public safety, and yes, about common sense. And what we're doing right now, it's failing on all three counts. So whether it's this bill or another, something has to change. And I've been critical of Judge Wilson. I much preferred the gentleman who was up for that position before, Judge Hector LaSalle. But I am glad that he is raising this because I think this is certainly an issue that needs to be addressed. And but for him raising it, I'm not sure that it would have been. So we'll see where things go. I think we need to find that sweet spot between getting more people that belong in prison and getting more people that don't belong there out.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Hi, I'm Cyndi Lauper. My scalp was covered with psoriasis, which could lead to psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx treats both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX.
Cosentyx works for me.
Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
New York City is no stranger to violent crime, unfortunately. But every now and then, a story comes along that reminds us just how senseless and horrifying that violence can be. This past weekend, Trevor Hughes, a father of four, a grandfather, a DJ, a locksmith, a hardworking man, was murdered outside his own home over something as trivial as a parking spot. Shot dead in the boogie-down Bronx because he asked a man to move a car from a driveway he paid to use. His girlfriend was beaten so badly she had to be hospitalized. His killer, a career criminal, a man who had already spent 24 years behind bars for murder, only to be released back onto the streets. A man who should never have been in a position to take another life. Think about that. A man who played by the rules, who did what he was supposed to do, who called the police for help, was gunned down because he expected the same decency in return. This should never happen. And yet, This is why so many New Yorkers feel unsafe, because at any moment, a simple everyday frustration, finding a parking spot, asking someone to turn their music down, walking home at the wrong time can turn into deadly violence. People talk about crime statistics, but let's be honest, the numbers don't matter when the reality is this. Good people, working people are being murdered in their own communities by violent offenders who never should have been released in the first place. Trevor Hughes should be alive today. His children should still have a father. His neighbors should still be able to hear his music, not mourn his loss. New York City cannot continue like this. We need to demand better from our leaders, from our justice system, and from a city that has, for too many people, become a place where the simple act of going home at night is no longer safe. And I'm a fan of a lot of motion pictures, I don't know as much as I used to, but the film The Bronx Tale, which is absolutely great, in the opening scene, there's a conflict over a parking spot. And you have a young boy who's incredulous that someone actually lost his life over a parking spot. You learn later in the film that there's probably a bit more to it. But you think of how ridiculous that is. And you think, oh, that's the kind of thing that only happens in the movies. Unfortunately, it's not. And it's a wake-up call to all of us that you got to be careful when confronting anybody because you don't know who you're confronting. And you hate to think that that means you should just let people walk all over you, stealing your parking spots or parking in front of a driveway. But you don't know. To be continued.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
It's happening again. Another brutal, senseless attack on one of New York's bravest. The men and women who put their lives on the line every day in our city's jails. Correction officer Shamika Mitchell was doing her job at Rikers Island when she was suddenly, viciously attacked. The suspect, Robert Ray, a man already locked up for sucker punching an MTA worker. And what did he do? He ran up behind Officer Mitchell and slugged her so hard, she dropped to the ground unconscious with a fractured eye socket. Now, let me ask you something. If this happened on the street, if a woman walking to work was blindsided and knocked unconscious by a repeat offender, what would we call it? We'd call it attempted murder. We'd demand justice. We'd call for stronger laws, harsher penalties, and real consequences. But because this happened inside a jail, the system shrugs. This is the reality for our correction officers. Men and women who wear a badge, just like the NYPD, just like the FDNY, they walk into Rikers every day knowing they may not walk out the same. And yet, instead of getting the protection they deserve, they get ignored. When a crime happens in a jail, it's treated differently, less seriously. Why? Benny Bascio, the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association, put it best. A crime in the jails is no different from what happens on the street. And he's absolutely right. If we don't start treating these attacks with real consequences, then what's stopping the next thug from taking a swing at another officer? Think about it. This guy, Robert Ray, was already in Rikers for attacking a woman. He's not afraid of the system. He knows it won't hold him accountable. And now another woman, another public servant, has been left battered and broken. This isn't just about Shamika Mitchell. It's about every correction officer in that jail, every MTA worker on the subway, every cop walking a beat. It's about every single person who puts on a uniform and risks their safety to protect this city. If we don't start protecting them, then who's going to protect us? I think this is absolutely something that happens far too frequently. It's absolutely something that prosecutors and the DA's office in places like the Bronx need to take seriously. And I think we need to reevaluate this whole idea of shutting down Rikers and having these borough-based jails. Because shutting down Rikers doesn't make problems like these go away, just multiplies them by 4.
Beam me up!
To be continued.